Hey, podcast listeners, this is Nate from the Made It podcast. Wanted to reach out to any founders, growth marketers, sales leaders listening. We've made a community just for you, and we wanted to invite you to join. We have growth playbooks for you to use, instructional events, a few dozen every month to learn how to use the latest technology, even some free services that can be helpful to help your company grow. The first 1,000 people to join are free. We've created a link. You can click on it in the bio for this episode. We hope you'll join us over at our community.
Welcome to Made It with Connor Tomkies.
Guys, I'm here with Justin Donald. He's considered the Warren Buffett of lifestyle investing, and also he runs lifestyleinvestor.com. If you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend that you guys check out his book. It talks about the 10 commandments of cash flow investing for passive income and financial freedom. But also, you're a post-exit founder and a pickleball enthusiast. The last time we played, every team I was on lost. So I don't think that we did too hot, but I really appreciate you stepping in and joining me on this podcast, Justin.
Happy to be here. And it was great just hearing that you were moving here. I'm like, well, what better way to welcome you in town than to get you out to Eastside Paddle Club, play some pickleball.
It's honestly been fantastic. In Dallas, I felt like I was the younger tech entrepreneur guy, but here there's everyone.
Your avatar is a very common one, which in some regards you might be like, oh, I like the uniqueness of being one of few, but I actually love being around so many other people like me or that think like me or that are in the same arena as I am. It's refreshing for me personally.
But it's actually been a trend. I think that meeting people in real life and as far as like entrepreneurial communities and actually doing an activity together is where things are going.
I've said this for a long time, and one of my friends, Brad Johnson, took this slogan and made it his own. You've got compartments and it's like business over here, life here. I want to do life with the people I do business with. And I want to do business with the people I do life with.
That's a good way to look at it. One of the things I wanted to ask about or dig in is that you're in the same post-exit founder community. So tell me about the business that you sold. That's probably a good place to start.
I have started numerous businesses and some of them have been acquired and I'm still part of it. Some of them have been acquired and I'm not part of it anymore. One of them was a consulting company that I started early on. And this was years ago. This is me taking things that I learned on comp structures and recruiting and leadership development and ongoing training, like retention type stuff. And so that was a teeny tiny business. And there was a very small exit. All right. That was sub 7 figures. But that was like my first taste of an exit, which was nice. And I have since invested in a bunch of companies that have had an exit. Another one, though, that I was an owner of is a dog training studio. And sounds super obscure because I know nothing about dogs. I've never owned a dog.
Okay. Yeah.
I literally don't know the first thing. My daughter would love us to have a dog.
So you don't currently have a dog, but you did at the time or?
No, I've never owned a dog.
Okay. How did this happen? Is this here in town?
It's in Kansas City. So this is like a trend that I was paying attention to during COVID where I just noticed a lot of people were buying more pets.
Yeah.
And there's also trends like we live in Austin. It's a very pet-friendly city. And so here I'd already seen some trends, right? I've been here about 8 years. But during COVID, I saw people who said that they would never buy a dog, buy a dog. People that said they'd never buy another dog, buy another dog. I saw the havoc that they wreaked in their households when people were indoors more than outdoors. And so I was like, there is an opportunity here. That business ended up doing really well. We ended up scaling, becoming one of the biggest in the Kansas City area. Patrick Mahomes trained his dog in our studio, which is really cool. And a bunch of other people. I don't have...
That dog is like really good at fetch.
Hey, that's one thing working for you because not all dogs are. But I really don't know the first thing. But what I did learn is if you hire a great team, just hire awesome people that do know the space and you can do well. At one point, this studio was profiting $10,000 a day. Now, that's not a consistent thing. That's not a thing where like we could have drawn it out that long, but we basically opened up a larger window for scheduling. So we were scheduling out 6 months and we were full. Let me tell you, we got to a point where it was like, okay, we either need to expand the heck out of this thing and make it monstrous, which means we're going to need another location, or we could franchise it, or we can just cap it and say, hey, we got a wait list now and we can only take so many people. But that was a great business. And we ended up selling that and making a substantial profit on that business. And I had an operator that ran everything.
How are things going with the lifestyle investor and the mastermind? Would you want to share a little bit about the mastermind community that you built?
Sure. Yeah. We just, I love the community that we have. And we've got about 120 members that are just all playing the game of business and life and wealth creation at a super high level. We've been waitlist for membership, good number of months. I mean, it's been over a year now, and we get to be picky and choosy with who comes in. But it's been a really neat experience of our deliverables are just great connection and networking, world-class education, world-class tax strategy, and then deal flow. And we do a lot on the passive income side of things. And we're able to get these incredible preferred terms for people. And so, yeah, it basically attracts these world beaters that are doing amazing things. And you've got an expert in every industry. It's really fun. It's like the genius of the whole of every member. It is so much smarter than any of the individual people. And so, yeah, I like that. I think it's fun. We ended up building a secondary mastermind because we had such a big wait list. And so we opened up Tribe of Investors, which is like a starter mastermind. And technically, we just rolled out in the fall Lifestyle Investor Foundations, which is our young adults. We just got that off the ground months ago. And we've got a couple that is part of the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind who work with younger people already in their businesses. They got a bunch of franchises, a bunch of like mom and pop businesses.
Yeah.
And they are running it. And it's pretty neat to see. But it's taken off. I would have never guessed in a million years that we would have so many amazing people in one place with more demand than available room for membership. It's pretty cool.
It's very focused. You're not accepting like a large pool of people. You're being very intentional about who you bring into the group. What's the one for young professionals? Are you teaching them about how to build wealth? Is it focusing more on investment and money management? Is it all of the above?
It's all the above. We're incorporating in some soft skills that we feel like many of them could stand to learn a little bit better. So there's definitely some leadership things. We're talking about health, but yeah, wealth and finances are definitely a component of it. And for a lot of these guys, it's totally different because we get into a lot of deals that we have no business getting into just through relationships that people in our community have or that I have. Those are deals that, foundations that younger adult group isn't quite ready for. So it's not like we're spending that type of time drilling down on these investments and the details of it. But we definitely want to give an overview on investing and how to think about it and how to do it smarter. My friend and I built a due diligence, like vetting deals course that I think is pretty incredible. And it has done very well since we produced it. And so that it's like those concepts that we want to be teaching early and often so people really build a good foundation.
Is there any interest in buying businesses or is it only looking at like from an investing standpoint, partial ownership?
Yeah, we've done a little bit of everything. I mean, in the mastermind, there's a lot of people that buy and sell and they'll partner up and they'll do things together. I generally am not going to facilitate a transaction to buy a business, but it happens all the time. I mean, one year, I just said, if you're ever going to sell, if you've ever thought about it, now's the time to sell. Just do it. There was a window of 2 weeks where we had 14 members have an exit. We had a total of like 24 or 25 people over the course of the whole year have an exit, but 14 of them over a 2-week time frame in November. So pretty incredible. Yeah, we've had tons of businesses being purchased, businesses being sold. We bring a lot of specialists into the space that can help our community. So we've got people that specialize in different, if you're 5 mil or under in EBITDA, here's the specialist. If you're, 5 million to 20 million, here's the specialist. If you're, 20 million plus, and technically we have some that are like 100 million plus only, and they're kind of the big leagues. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important component for the deals that we do together. I really want to keep those. Like, we'll invest in companies. We're not going to buy them out completely, but we'll invest in a minority equity position or even some sort of like senior secured position. Maybe we'll lend money. Maybe we'll set up equity kickers around it. So we certainly do that, but collectively, we don't buy a business as a mastermind of 120 members and then try and run it.
That would be a lot. I was thinking more of some meetups around buying businesses essentially to help.
Oh, we've done a ton of those. Actually, we're building our May event. We're bringing in an all-star cast of people that are experts at business acquisition. Yeah, we've got a handful of people that we've been really impressed with.
There's a very big group of people that are interested in buying, but haven't taken that step. So they're like buying curious, right? They're in that in-between stage.
When people are ready to sell, by the way, we've got a guy in our community that has helped several of our members sell for over 9 figures. I mean, he's like just the man. Actually, I did a podcast episode with him. His name's Pete Worrell. For anyone that is at a point, if you're listening and you're like, hey, at some point I want to sell, and at some point it's probably going to be a big exit, he's your guy because he has just been incredible to work with. We have so many people that have just sung his praises.
At the Entrepreneur Cooperative, like we pay a lot of attention to pairing post-exit founders with people that are about to sell their business. That's the main point of what we do. And having someone that's not the banker or broker is fantastic. It's
imperative, actually. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table.
The lawyer's there representing like the company's interest, not yours. The banker's there to represent the deal's interest, not yours, right? So having your own lawyer or your own team that's helping support you is probably one of the most impactful things you can do to make sure that you sell your business and then at a good multiple. So hopefully there's more people doing this stuff.
Yeah. And you need the right funnel of potential buyers that are engaged here, right? So you can't just work with a set list of people that many of these bankers have, right? You're going to get their M&A specialists, but it doesn't open the net as much as it probably needs to be opened if you want to really maximize the transaction.
What are some of the trends that get you excited for 2025? What are some of the things that you're looking at?
All right. So a few of them I could just rattle off the top of my head, but I mean, I actually have spent some good time. And so I guess a precursor is, I think one of my superpowers is I've been able to identify trends. So it's not really predicting, it's more identifying trends. And it's like before it becomes mainstream, I just see enough signs, kind of like the dog training business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or I have enough data points where I'm like, I think this is a thing and I'm going to move forward with it. And I was able to get in early on mobile home park investing before private equity was ever in that space. That was huge. I was able to get into single family home rentals as an asset class before that was actually a technical asset class. I actually built a maintenance company with a couple of buddies that services the largest institutional owners. So this one's probably going to do their Series C this year. And we've done very well with that one. That company started at a point in time where most people didn't even know that SFR even existed. And so there was no operators. And so I like to look at this. I got into cannabis lending and investing early. I mean, there's a number of them I could go through with you. And so this is one where I like to look at the data. I like to figure this out. I was also super early in Bitcoin, and that one's still top of my list. And for anyone that, hasn't at least done what the family offices do. Your family offices generally are recommending 1% to 5% of your net worth as an asset allocation. So if you're not there, that'd be something to consider for anyone listening to this. But onshoring and reshoring, I think we're seeing more that is going to happen there. Paying attention to trade partners and what that looks like. I think border towns are going to become more relevant and especially in that Rio Grande Valley. And so I think it's going to be, let's talk industrial, let's talk multifamily. I think those two, asset classes are really going to pop here. And I would also put port cities with it. We've got a couple of major ports here. We've got maybe a third one that could take off and become even bigger.
What are you thinking? Is like Galveston or?
I do think that area is likely going to experience a lot more business. And so, we had each of the sides on the West Coast and the East Coast have their strike and try and work stuff out. But is it really worked out, or is it just a Band-Aid for right now? I still think that those ports, and we own a bunch of real estate around those ports already. Those are the two biggest ports, but we do think that there's going to be a lot more there in the Gulf of Mexico, maybe the Gulf of America. We'll see what it's called. I'm a big fan of industrial outdoor storage. That's kind of like a little niche sub-market of industrial, and industrial has been the number one, between mobile home parks and industrial, those are your top, 1 and 2 best performing real estate asset classes the last 7 years running. It'll likely continue on. So I still like that. So that's a subcategory of that, we've got some dollars in that has been, you've got a supply demand imbalance there, just like you do with mobile home parks. There's the supply demand, hard to build them, hard to get the zoning. And so it's a little bit more of a finite resource, if you will.
What I like about this is that you're a lot of macro trends, right? Like we're talking about immigration policy, we're talking about ports, they never go away, but you're going to see a lot more goods exchanging. Not a lot of tech. Is this intentional? Is it because like you possibly see it as like tech is almost depreciating because it's easier to build?
I'm just not to that part of the list. I'm only two, four, five in of about a 15 list.
Let's keep it going. I don't want to mess with the flow.
Private credit, we're already seeing this growing. This is becoming more and more of a major component of family office portfolios. 5 to 15% is what's being recommended. For those of you that are unfamiliar with private credit, think of what a bond portfolio is on the private side. I think still buying small and medium-sized businesses. We were talking about that earlier. I like that a lot. I like that better than starting a business.
I do find that there is a little bit of a gap there, right? Like,
oh yeah,
a lot of people are fishing from the same pond. Some platforms that are trying to congregate deal flow, but the quality of the deal flow is a little off. Someone can capitalize on it. It's not me, but someone.
Yeah, well, anytime you got a platform, they're probably cherry picking the best deals. I mean, so hopefully people know that already. It's like you're getting second servings of whatever it is. Those are a fine way, and you can find a good deal if it fits your parameters. Like, you got to identify your criteria and what that looks like for you, but there are probably better ways to go about finding a business than using one of those platforms.
If you get to know the founders before they go to sell, which sounds ridiculous and it is hard, but it's just like any other networking and allocation of time is getting to know them over a longer period of time. You're going to find the better deals before they go to a banker and broker. Sometimes the banker and broker can get in the way of the transaction. There's more competition for the bids. It's harder if you're an individual buyer, sometimes competing against private equity firms. It just also depends on the size of the deals that you're looking for. So I do agree. Like, there's a lot of opportunity outside. Anything you can do outside, you're going to be in a better lane.
Let me give you a few more. Minority positions and pro sports teams. I'm a huge fan. That's becoming a lot more democratized. There's ways that accredited investors, or actually it's probably qualified purchasers, that can get access to that. So 5 mil net worth and above. And so I have many positions that I've actually made. There have been a number of exits over the last few years. And so that's been very profitable for us. Esports. I think this is going to gain more and more traction here in the US. I've invested in a couple of these companies that I think are going to be huge. And I would also throw Web3 gaming in there as a separate category, but also in the same realm of things. But we've got a guy in our mastermind that's building out today's most advanced version of Web3 gaming, where they poached the guy from Microsoft that was running the #1 most profitable division for Microsoft, and now he's running their gaming company.
Like an RPG kind of style with like Web3 tokens being issued, or?
Yep.
Okay, that's fun.
It's going to be pretty neat. Kind of this whole idea of like, and I'm not a gamer, so I'm not going to be able to exactly articulate this, but if you check out Coin Games with a K, Koin, there used to be a world like Web 2 where whatever you had on the game, you couldn't get it outside of the game. It was stuck in the game and that's it. In these Web 3 games, you now can buy skins and weapons and all this, and you can actually pull it outside the game. You can trade it, you can sell it. Some of these things are rare. You can make money on them. You can buy from someone else off the platform, bring it onto the platform. And so it almost becomes two different ecosystems that exist inside of the same gaming platform.
That's really cool.
And if we take this to the next level, Web3 gaming, above that, we just talk about blockchain. Like, blockchain is going to be a difference maker, whether people realize it or not. There's going to be a lot of ways to be able to invest in it. So a lot of what we've talked about in my future trends that I've identified are actually built on the blockchain. So I'm a huge fan there. GP stakes. And I'm going to lump in with this secondaries, and I'm going to lump in with this even distressed assets. So all three of those I kind of see as subcategories of maybe a parent category there. I think all of those are prime for A, great returns, and B, disruption.
Really quickly, going back to distressed assets, do you see Tiny and Enduring Ventures going after like zombie companies, right? Like these distressed asset, VC-backed, interesting companies. That's pretty cool. I imagine it takes like a lot of negotiating to make sure all the stakeholders are happy, but it's a pretty cool opportunity if you can do it.
It for sure is. And sometimes the VCs just need to offload it. Sometimes they need to, wrap up the fund. And so you might actually get some decent pricing. Sometimes they're counting it as a zero, or they're counting it right. And so you could pick it up really cheap. So I just think that there's definitely an opportunity there. I don't want to be on the operational side of that, though I've done that in my past, but I would rather be the investor on it. I'm an investor in Enduring Ventures. I love the moves that they've made. I'm a big fan of those guys, and what they've been able to build. It's quite impressive.
I mean, how many deals have they done? Like 30, 35 at this point. They've been able to build a pretty good machine around.
They're like a mini Berkshire Hathaway. It's like I can envision that when Berkshire started, this is probably in a similar direction to what they did. But early days of Berkshire, I bet you, is pretty similar.
What else is on the list, Justin?
Companies with long-term government contracts. So anytime you have the government locked into 10, 15, 20 years, that's pretty attractive. I have some exposure here to a number of companies that are in these positions, some funds, some co-investments, some just direct deals. Robotics, it's funny, robotics is becoming more and more popular. I've been investing in robotics companies for like a decade now.
It used to be SaaS was like the golden child, right? But like if it's easier to build and develop, that adding that robotics layer in and layering on the software element to it, you're creating a moat almost that wasn't there before. You're able to do more things than you were able to do before.
100%. And by the way, SaaS is still on my list. It's next on the list, but I think that AI is really, and AI is next. And specifically, I have here AI-enabled tech. It's just like the next, it's making SaaS even smarter. It's making SaaS more efficient. I was in Silicon Valley a couple months ago and hung out with a bunch of the tier one VCs, many of the general partners there. And just, it was cool hearing their insights and what they're thinking and what they're doing. And they're all very bullish on AI and really thinking that AI is going to be even greater than SaaS is or was. It's creating a more efficient, more optimized, better performing, more comprehensive layer on something that was already the number one highest multiple.
I mean, how much of America's economy is based on information work?
Right.
Tremendous amount.
Pretty awesome. I mean, there's a ton of them. And so it's hard to know what's the right one. A lot of these early ones are going to, it's kind of like cryptocurrency where many or most are going to die, but some are just going to take off, and figuring out what are going to be the front runners like that. That's where the big money is going to be made.
From an investing standpoint, it's an interesting seat to be in because you're trying to pick your winners. From an operating standpoint, it's almost like whatever track you are on just got accelerated. And like whatever competition you're surrounding with yourself with is completely different. So I almost feel for some of the operators out there that are trying to like do traditional SaaS and are looking around and being like, oh, I really need change. And the ones that are able to, hats off to you. But it's going to be very different in the next year.
I really enjoy kind of doing the homework, the research, taking the deep dive, finding the deals that kind of line up there. But this is the reason I feel like I've been able to excel on the investment front is more because I trust my gut with enough data points to see something that could become mainstream before it's mainstream and then be rewarded once it goes mainstream.
From the outside looking in, it seems like you did a good job of building your life around the lifestyle investor brand and the community and the mastermind piece of it. You're combining like community, a business that you can put your attention and start solving problems with, also the investment layer, which a lot of post-exit founders are trying to figure out. How do I allocate money? How do I do things that I'm curious about, that I can learn more about? You're checking off a lot of boxes with this. Was this intentional, or is this something that you fell into?
So it was definitely intentional, but it was interesting because it was once I made everything I needed to make where I realized, okay, well, I don't need to make more money. I'm not motivated by more money. I took a year off and my family went and traveled. So in 2017, my family went to 13 different countries and just had the most epic time. I literally did not work for a year. It was really hard at the beginning and really hard at the end.
Yeah.
Once in the middle, I got in the zone and it was awesome. But I was trying to figure out like, well, what am I going to do next? I don't even know what I want to do with my life necessarily. Like I have things I enjoy doing, but like, how can I make a difference and have impact? Because when you don't need to make money and you strip that away, that's often the number one thing people are solving for is like, well, I need to make X amount to live my life. Well, what happens when you strip that away? Well, now you can be a lot more intentional on, well, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? What serves people well? How can I have impact? And so it was like asking those questions and really drilling down over a year and journaling. That was a year that I journaled more than any other year. And I just wanted to capture my thoughts and what I was thinking. And I just had this epiphany. So number one is I love to read and learn. And so I was always consuming, some sort of information. Number two, the more I learn, the more I want to teach people. I was always teaching friends the cool stuff that I just learned.
Yeah.
And then number three, I really enjoy doing deals. Like that's fun. And number four, I just love being around people. I love building communities and building relationships. Like that's so fun for me. And at the end of that year, I was like, you know what? If I'm doing this anyway, what if I do this and like create, some sort of a business or brand or ecosystem around those four elements? And so that's really where the Lifestyle Investor was birthed. And so I started building this community first. People loved it. They told me I should write a book, so I wrote a book. They told me I should start a podcast. I started a podcast. It was great advice. And at that time, early days, I didn't charge anything to be part of the mastermind. I wanted smart people in. I felt like more minds were better than just my mind at looking at a deal or working on some tax strategy. And then my friends started making a lot and they're like, you should charge for this. Like we would pay you. So figure it out. And they're like, you want to take a carry? But I didn't want to take a carry. I didn't want a product because I think financial services are just totally misaligned. You look at the financial services industry, I think it is corrupt. I think it is misaligned. I think it is really disturbing and disgusting on so many levels. So I just wanted a program where I wasn't making money on everyone else's money because that's what everyone seems to do. So I said, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to charge a membership fee. I'm not going to charge a carry on anything. It'll just literally be a membership fee to get in. And I'm going to charge a high membership fee so I can attract the right people and repel, the not right fit people. And that's what we did. And so, to charge $55K to be a member sounds crazy. To think that we've got a wait list of, tens, if not hundreds of people is even crazier. But the reality is people want to be around other amazing people.
It takes a very big step to go that big for the membership fee. And I know a lot of communities, we're in some communities that it's fantastic. You get fantastic value and they have a hard time with how do you price that? Are you going to scare people away? How do you go from like a free community to a monetized community? It's a big issue for a lot of people. What gave you the wherewithal, the courage to do a move like that?
A lot of the people that were in the original group that were free, they were friends of mine, but the friends of mine were the ones saying, hey, I get I could keep getting this for free, but I just want you to know you should charge. So it was like hearing that from people that I trusted and respected really gave me a lot of confidence. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. We'll see, And so I remember doing an event. I just did a one-day event and I was like, hey, if you like this, I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to continue doing it once a month. I was like, maybe I get a few people. I did this one-day event for like 21 or 22 people. And I think 18 or 19 opted in. And so I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea. And then from there, it took off. And so it's funny, in the early years, we only did one event a month. That was it. Now we've got a local meetup once a month. We've got weekly Zoom calls. We've got regular tax strategy sessions. We got regular M&A sessions. We've got, it literally, we've got a big fall event, a big spring event. Those are live in Austin. We've got our year-end event, which is here. So it's, we've got white glove travel where, we went to Mexico City and hit up all their Michelin rated restaurants and cocktail bars, everything that's won awards. And we're doing a trip to New York City to do the same thing this spring. And we're going to Japan this fall. It's cool to be able to have so many additional things and to see the growth, see what it looks like today versus where it was when it first started. But yeah, I was nervous to do it. I'm glad I took the leap. I figure what's the worst thing that happens? And we'll have to reassess or maybe have to lower the price or something, but we've never had to lower the price.
One of the things that I care about specifically is when a company goes to sell, because a lot of times there's not like a lot of material on that. We just talked about how like it's a very tumultuous time. It's very hard to kind of piece and line everything up together for that exit to happen. I think if you gather the right people around you, then you get that $500,000 in value. That value return could be really, really high. And there's also other areas of like investment or tax as far as like if you're having a $50 million exit and you're able to implement the right strategies going into it, the amount that you save could cover that 55K.
It's funny. Most people think like linearly. They're like, well, if I invest this much, I need to earn this return, and that covers the investment in the mastermind. And I just let people know this is not a linear thing. Like most people, I don't know anyone that's joined our mastermind that hasn't covered it in tax savings alone, right? We have over 50 unique tax strategies that most CPAs don't even know about, that we've done live recordings on and are itemized on a spreadsheet. And so when we do our audit with people, they're always blown away at what they can do. So yeah, I mean, there's not someone who joins that can't save 55K in taxes year one. Usually it's hundreds of thousands. And for a lot of people, it's millions or tens of millions. And if someone's having an exit, oh gosh, I mean, we're literally talking millions or tens of millions of dollars is what we religiously have helped people with, legally, all right down the fairway type of strategy. Nothing crazy.
Justin, for post-exit founder folks, do you have any advice that you would pass on for people that are about to sell or have sold their company?
Yeah, I get smart people in your ecosystem. Get people that have done it before. Like today, what I find is people hire others or look fondly upon others that have a big social media following. That to me is not a sign that they're an expert at the thing that they claim to be. That's a sign that they're good at marketing themselves, their brand, themselves as a person. That always makes me really uncomfortable. I hear all the time, this person has a big social media following. This person has a big YouTube channel. And I'm like, that is not the same thing as being an expert of their craft. And they've done it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. If
they're expert in their craft, they're busy.
Yes. So, that's the one thing I would say is like, get the right smart advisors around you. Get a peer group of people that have already had an exit and can walk you through the pitfalls, what to do, what not to do. And number 3, get a good tax strategy in place, because even if you never did anything with tax strategy the whole rest of your life, and I beg that you do, because this is the number one wealth erosion mechanic out there is taxes. If you do them wisely, you can turn all that into wealth creation. But let's say that you didn't ever get serious about it the whole rest of your life, but you just got serious that 1 year you had a big exit. That could be life-changing money. But the number one investment I've ever made is world-class tax strategy. Because if you just save $30,000 a year and you do that for, 10 years, let's just take average, alternative investments average about 15% a year. So let's just take that. You're talking over $1 million. All right. Just straight up. Now over 30 years, you're talking over $13 million.
If someone wants to sell in the next 3 years, when's the last day that when do they need to get this stuff in place by?
I would say if you want to sell in 3 years, start it now. I always tell people I like a 2 to 3 year lead up to be able to get your ducks in a row, but at a minimum, have a year at an absolute minimum. And sometimes I get it. You might not know you're going to sell. You get too good of an offer. Fine. Then that day, as you're figuring out, that you are going to sell and who you're working with there, you need to get someone on the tax side of things. But I mean, we religiously help people save millions of dollars on when they have an exit. And, we have some members that are like, oh man, if I had only found you before my exit, I had an exit. Now I got all this cash. I don't know what to do. So I need the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind. I need to figure out how to become an investor, because entrepreneurs generally are not good investors, even though they think they are. It's 2 different skill sets.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of training, a lot of education, a lot of, reps that need to go into play. But we get a lot of people after they've had their exit to a T. They're all like, if I'd only found you sooner, I'd have X million more. And so that's the thing. It's like, I want people to find us before the exit so that we can help them, months, if not years prior to the exit.
I guess making it more accessible is the main goal, right? You're trying to make it easier for people to see.
100%. And I built a tax strategy masterclass that has 27 of the 60 some odd strategies that we have that, really has just gone viral. And it's been our top selling product because it's small dollars for a big return. And we talk a ton about the do's, the don'ts, that the IRS, a lot of people look at them as the bad guys and them saying, don't do this. But really what it is they're giving you a blueprint of if you do these things, we're going to take care of you, because they need agriculture. They need renewable energy. They need affordable housing. They need, all these things and, jobs, whatever it is, like they're going to incentivize a certain behavior that they want. And when you understand that, you can make these decisions.
Yeah. Justin, I really appreciate the chat. Where should people go to find you?
Best place is lifestyleinvestor.com. We've got everything there from, free stuff. I got a podcast, a blog. You can learn more about the book. I actually just released the updated and expanded edition of The Lifestyle Investor. So about 30% more content is in that book than the original book, which now is a top 1% of all books ever sold. And every dollar that anyone purchases towards those books all goes to fight human trafficking. So we've raised a ton of money for those efforts and feel so good about it. I've got master classes, I've got online courses. You can learn about the masterminds there. And in fact, here's something that might be fun for your community. If people want to know what's next, where should they go? How can they create passive income that exceeds their lifestyle? Like what are the next steps? We offer these strategy consultation calls. They're generally $500, but I'd love to give it to your community for free. So anyone in your audience that's listening, if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, I'll enter something in here so that it's a free strategy session with someone on our team for anyone using that link.
That's fantastic, Justin. I really appreciate it. Guys, that's the pod. Cheers.
That wraps up today's episode. For more inspiring stories and valuable lessons from successful entrepreneurs, be sure to listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and writing your next chapter.